I'm Maya Van Rossum. I'm the Delaware Riverkeeper, of course, and leader of the Delaware Riverkeeper Network, but also a founder of Green Amendments for the Generations and the national movement that we are advancing, as well as the author of the book. I am going to go first and give a reminder overview, but also dig down a little bit more with some specific information to really help people when they're dialoguing around the New Jersey Green Amendment. We are then going to have Dave Pringle, who's going to talk about the legislative status and political reality. Dave, hopefully my 2 short slides on that are not a problem, but I can delete them if they are.
We have worked long enough together that I'm sure it will be fine, and you're welcome to pull the rug out from under me.
Okay, great. But I won't. I'll just go because it's part of my spiel. And then wonderfully, we've got Kim Gaddy here, who's going to talk about the environmental justice values of the New Jersey Green Amendment. And then we're going to have some Q&A and discussion. And it looks like we got a lot of other stuff on the agenda, so I'm not going through it. We're just going to go ahead and get started and pass the ball, pass the buck, whatever, as we go through the agenda. But really just want to thank you all so much for being here. We really believe, all of us who have been engaged with this New Jersey Green Amendment effort, we really believe we have a real shot. Momentum is building, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it. But we believe that with some really extra effort this year, we have a shot at making significant progress. But I'm not going to say any more than that, because then I would be stepping on Dave's toes. So I'm going to just share my screen and play from start. Great. So, and I'm going to move you all out of my way. So just, of course, really quick, forthegenerations.org is the national organization website. And my new book is out as of November 1, The Green Amendment, The People's Fight for a Clean, Safe, and Healthy Environment, which updates the first edition, but also adds some critical chapters on climate justice, environmental justice, the human health values of a healthy Green Amendment, talks about how our Green Amendment movement has evolved, which if you were to read the book, I think would really help give you a greater sense of place and space on how you are helping to grow this movement. And you're going to see a lot in the book about what has been and is happening in the state of New Jersey. So it will be really have a lot of place-based sense of value for you. So just going to highlight that. We have a great and growing group of organizations that have really taken on the baton of leading the development of the strategy and the education initiatives and sort of coming up with the ideas and putting them out to the world. But this movement is not happening because of these great organizations on the screen. It's happening because of you, those of you who have joined this training. And all the folks and partners that you're engaging with, your family, your friends, your coworkers, who you're bringing into the Green Amendment movement to really help give it strength and give it voice. This is going to happen only with you. And the bugs are coming in, so I'm quickly going to close the screen door. Okay, so I don't get eaten alive. So anyway, so just want to thank you all so much again for coming. So what is a Green Amendment? Really fast, right? Just a reminder, there are a lot of environmental rights amendments in state constitutions across our nation, where state constitutions talk about the environment, actually talk about the rights of people to clean water and clean air, but they don't rise to the level of we call a Green Amendment. Every Green Amendment is an environmental rights amendment. Not every environmental rights amendment is a Green Amendment. Green Amendments really lift up environmental rights and give them the most powerful constitutional strength so that environmental rights are actually literally enforceable, not just pretty sounding language. If you want to have a Green Amendment, there are a lot of essential fundamentals that make you, criteria that have to be met. The language has to be in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution. It has to be protecting the rights of all people to essentials of a clean and healthy environment that are specifically identified, like clean water, clean air, stable climate, healthy environments. The language has to be self-executing, meaning it has legal strength and enforceability in its own right. When we believe that our environmental rights have been infringed upon, we can turn to the Constitution to try to take legal action to protect those rights. We don't have to find some law that gives us an entitlement to bring our case or make our argument. We can just turn to the constitutional language. The language really needs to be generational so that we are protecting the rights of present and future generations. That provides an added level of strength in how environmental governance and decision-making has to take place. So we really are protecting the environment for the long term, not just the near term. And that really raises the bar on environmental protection. And long story short, green amendments with their placement and their language ensure that our rights to a clean, safe, and healthy environment are given the same power as our rights to those other fundamental freedoms we hold dear, like free speech and freedom of religion, private property rights, the right to bear arms. We all know how powerfully those rights are protected under the law and in our system of governance because they are recognized and protected in the Bill of Rights section of our state and federal constitution using exactly the right language. Well, that same incredible power and strength now comes to bear for the environment when we have a constitutional green amendment. That's a brief summary. There's more, but that's just an overview. And just remind you that if somebody comes up to you and says, it doesn't need to be in the Bill of Rights, you can say, yes, it does. That's critically important. So why does New Jersey Green Amendment? Why does New Jersey need a green amendment? You know, people will say, well, we have all kinds of laws and regulations and agencies and policies and programs here in the state of New Jersey. Why do we actually need something more? Well, we know we need something more because we have a lot of environmental problems in the state of New Jersey. Just search the news headlines and you will see the myriad of ways that our water and our air and our environments and our soils are contaminated. Our environments are decimated and ecosystems are in decline, all in very significant ways that are harming people's lives. We can all see by looking at the headlines that environmental racism is alive and well here in the state of New Jersey, with communities of color and low-income communities continually and disproportionately sacrificed to highly polluting industrial operations and environmentally degrading activities. So we don't have to understand the hows and the whys of it. What we can see is that there is a problem on the ground and that therefore something is missing from this system of laws that we already have and that we need something more. That something more is constitutional recognition and protection of environmental rights in the form of a green amendment. What is the New Jersey Green Amendment and how is it going to help us? Well, first off, want to just highlight that the New Jersey Green Amendment would be the highest law in the state when it comes to the environment. Our Constitution is above all laws, all regulations, all government officials, all government action. So when we lift up our constitutional rights in the form of a green amendment, we provide this overarching protection that then governs everything else that happens within New Jersey governance and law when the environment is impacted. This is the actual language as it currently stands. And let's take a moment and look at it. It says that every person has a right to a clean and healthy environment, including pure water and clean air and ecologically healthy habitats, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic qualities of the environment. The state shall not infringe upon these rights by action or inaction. The state's public natural resources, among them its waters, air, flora, fauna, climate, and public lands, are the common property of all the people, including both present and future generations. And the state shall serve as trustee of these resources and shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all people. This paragraph is this paragraph and the rights stated herein are self-executing and shall be in addition to any other rights conferred by the public trust doctrine or common law, right? Any other rights that we might already have recognized under the law when it comes to the environment. That's the language. What this language accomplishes, again, not going to go into it again, just lifting up environmental rights so they are on par with those other human, civil, and political rights we hold dear. That's overarching what it does. But let's look at some of the specifics of the language. In the proposed Green Amendment, the language in Section A says every person, and the language in Section B says the state shall serve as trustee. What this does is it actually ensures that all people in the state, regardless of their race, their ethnicity, their socioeconomics, their tribal membership status, their gender, their geography, we all have the same constitutional right to a clean and healthy environment. And government officials have a duty to protect the environmental rights of all people equitably. This is, of course, powerful and important for all New Jerseyans, whoever you are, wherever you are. But this is critically important for helping to empower the environmental justice movement to really mandate that there has to be this equitable protection of environmental rights. That equitable protection obligation for all people comes from the Bill of Rights placement, but also because the state is the trustee of the natural resources of New Jersey for the benefit of present and future generations. Legally, that means they have certain very clear, well understood obligations under the law, what we call fiduciary obligations. Amongst them is the fiduciary obligation of prudence. That means they have to engage in informed decision-making, looking at cumulative impacts and science and facts and what's actually happening on the ground. That trustee obligation also brings with it a duty of loyalty. Loyalty to all the beneficiaries, which includes protecting everybody equitably, but it also makes sure that the people, present and future generations, must be given priority over things like corporate profits. Because the corporations and their profits are not the beneficiaries. We, the people, are. The duty of impartiality, there's also a duty of impartiality that comes, that duty of impartiality from that trustee obligation means that government officials must give equitable protection to the natural resources for the benefit of all the people, right? And so equity is not the same as equality. You know, sometimes there are people who have been for years in New Jersey suffering disproportionately from pollution and degradation. So they need an extra lift up of protection in order to bring their environmental rights on par with everybody else. But I just want to make clear that there's a combination of things in New Jersey's chosen language that ensures that all people are getting this critical protection. It's the Bill of Rights placement. It's the language that says all people. It's the duty to serve as a trustee of the state's natural resources for the benefit of present and future generations. The language does say present and future generations. So that means that we get generational protection. That is not just pretty and aspirational. That is actually substantive, meaningful law. It means that when government officials are engaged in decision-making, they have to ensure that the implications on the environment ensure that future generations actually have quality environments, the same kind of quality environments that we have today. They have to protect the environment for future generations so it has a health that is on par with present generations. That is enforceable, and that requires that long-term thinking. So I want to be clear that this generational language is not just aspirational and pretty. We've actually demonstrated in Pennsylvania that has similar language, that it's substantive and legal and enforceable. The language is very clear about what must be protected. What are the rights of the people? Pure water, clean air, right? Healthy environments. But it also makes very clear that the natural resources that the state must protect are not just water, air, flora, fauna, and ecosystems, but it specifically mentions climate. So that ensures that we can use the New Jersey Green Amendment to address issues of climate justice and the climate crisis. So I want to highlight, because that's really important, of course, for New Jersey that suffers so much from the ramifications of the climate crisis and also is contributing to it. And that important part that I mentioned earlier, that the language has to be self-executing. We don't want to run the risk that a judge doesn't agree with us that this language in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution would be self-executing, having that independent legal strength. So our legislative champions got super smart and just put it right in the language. Oh, don't need that. And the other thing that I want to note is this language where it talks about the state shall not, I can't read my whole screen, the state shall not infringe upon these rights. That's important in order to make clear that we are focused on government action and restraining government action. The Green Amendment is not what so many in the opposition argue. Well, you're giving new powers to the New Jersey government when it comes to the environment. We're actually doing the opposite. Just like with other fundamental freedoms, we're actually putting a wall up and saying to government officials, look, we've given you permission to govern over us through our Constitution, but when you govern, we're making clear that there are certain inalienable rights that are off limits. Amongst them now is the environment. So this is a limitation on government action. That language is very effective when you're talking to more conservative-minded people. It's not a grant of new authority, it's a restraint on government authority. The Green Amendment will not do away with all the existing laws on the books. It will strengthen them, because now all of New Jersey's existing environmental laws have to be interpreted and applied in a way that strengthens or that serves the Constitution and the obligation to protect environmental rights. So no longer can government officials sort of just define the words and laws and regulations the way they see fit. It all has to be done now in service to their obligation to protect the environmental rights of the people. Of course, it will also become a foundation for new critical protections. And when there are gaps in the laws, when things like PFAS toxic chemicals are allowed to get into the environment and decimate lives because there was literally no law or regulation to prevent them from being utilized in that way, people, even though there's no law, could turn to their constitutional right to clean water and healthy environments to secure government action through their advocacy and, if necessary, legal action. And if people believe their environmental rights have been infringed upon, they get immediate access to the courts. They don't have to look for a law that gives them permission to get there. Now, some of the questions we hear is, well, isn't the language really broad? What does it mean to have clean water, clean air? That language is too broad. Well, the truth is, all Bill of Rights language is broad, right? And so when people say that to you, when you're talking about this topic, you can say to them, well, what are excessive bails or fines? What does it mean to have just compensation for property taking? Or what is the right to freely speak? This is all broad language that is in the Bill of Rights section of the Constitution and ensures that these provisions can be enduring through time as our modern world evolves and changes. And these terms get interpreted or defined through the same process, you know, that all constitutional terms get interpreted and defined. The legislature interprets it and passes laws and regulations, and the state agencies implement them. And when we, the people, think they did it the right way, we don't say anything. But when we think they did it the wrong way, and we can prove that the ramification of how they've interpreted and applied this language results in a constitutional violation, then we can go to the courts and the courts can help us figure it out. That's how it happens with all constitutional language. That's what will happen with the terms used in the New Jersey Green Amendment. People say, well, aren't we giving extra power to unelected judges and the courts? No, we're not giving them any more power or less power than we give in every other context. The courts have an important place in our system of governance. The legislature has a role, the executive branch has a role, and when there's a problem, the judges get involved to help us sort it out. It's the same for environmental rights. Isn't this going to be just a make work project for lawyers? Won't we be overwhelmed with lawsuits? No. What we can see in the states that have constitutional green amendments is we see 3 to 9 lawsuits that make it to the courts a year. Pennsylvania and Montana have had their green amendments for a number of years now. That's how many cases we see on average. The state of New York has had its green amendment for just over a year. And last year, I think we saw about 4 cases make it to the courts. So it's all on par. And none of those cases are frivolous, meaning that they have no true grounding in facts or law, right? That people are just bringing them to bring some sort of noxious lawsuit. Lawyers don't do that lightly. That threatens their license, that threatens them to sanctions. So they don't want to bring frivolous lawsuits. Ever. It's just harmful to them. So they don't do it in other constitutional contexts. We don't expect it here. The truth is, if we were to, though, and in the other states, we have seen 0 frivolous lawsuits. The fact of the matter is, though, if in New Jersey, we saw some onslaught, overwhelming amount of real meaningful lawsuits to address serious issues of significant concern, then it would mean that there's a real problem. And thank goodness we got our Green Amendment in New Jersey. Will this language result in legal challenges of neighbor versus neighbor, downstream property owner against upstream farmer? No, it won't. This is about, remember, government action. The government shall not infringe. That means the government can't issue laws or permits or decisions that will ultimately result in an infringement of the right. But your legal challenge will not be against anybody but the government actor and actions and the decisions they undertook that allowed the harm. That may be a permit that they granted to an industrial operator that results in significant harm, and the voiding of that permit because of a successful constitutional challenge may mean that industrial operator can't behave in that bad way anymore. But in the first instance, the challenge is the government action. Won't it be too costly for the state to have a green amendment? No, it will be too costly not to have one. We know how much it costs to respond to flooding and flood damages. So we're going to save money by being more protective of the environment. The remedies are not going to be money payouts to people who succeed in their lawsuits. It means that the problematic government decisions are going to have to be addressed. A bad law was passed that results in constitutional violations. That law gets declared unconstitutional and is never implemented. A bad permit gets issued to an industrial operator that spews so much pollution into the air that kids in Camden who already suffer disproportionate harm are going to suffer more harm and be exposed to neurotoxicants that prevent them from being able to learn in school. Well, that permit gets voided, so that activity can't happen, right? So whatever is the problematic government activity gets pulled back. And we also all know actually that preserving the environment actually preserves healthy economic development. I think there's a really great quote from one of our legislative champions in New Mexico I like to bring up on this point. Senator Pope said when he was asked this question in New Mexico, his response was, we can't replace this planet, our land, our water, and we can't replace our people. People are worried about the cost to the state, but no harm, no cost. Cost is the wrong focus. We can't afford the harm. And I think that that's exactly the right orientation. And when people bring up costs to us, we should respond to them with righteous indignation that that child's life, right? That corporation's profits is not more important than that child's life or my quality life or my healthy family. So let's bring it right down to the basics. This is about the health and safety of people in our environment. That's all it's about. Isn't this just about giving rabid environmentalists another tool to go after government willy-nilly here and there? Well, we already talked about frivolous lawsuits don't happen, but I just want to highlight that green amendments in Pennsylvania and Montana have not just been used by people and organizations to hold government accountable, but actually municipal officials have used green amendments in those states to preserve their their authority from being infringed upon by state government. And state government actors have used the Green Amendment in order to protect their ability to better protect the environment in the ways they want to. Will it really make a difference? I'm not going to go through the cases, but I just want to assure you when we get to Q&A, or if you go onto the resources page of the New Jersey greenamendment.org website, you will see lots of examples of how laws and regulations and permits and policies and programs and bad decisions have been addressed because of the Green Amendment. And these are successes that would not have been achieved but for the constitutional protection. Where do things stand and what do we need? I am going to skip right over that and let Dave handle that. We do have 3 states, Montana, Pennsylvania, and New York, that already have a Green Amendment. This is nothing new. We want New York or New Jersey to be number 4. But of course, here in Florida, they're saying they want to be number 4. How can you stay informed and engaged? First off, NewJerseyGreenAmendment.org is a robust website, lots of resources, an action page, and we work hard to keep it up to date. So go there often, take action, and get involved. We actually have a new app that you can use to not just go to a stagnant website and grab information, but where you can be engaged in dynamic conversation. There's a page that's for the National Green Amendment movement, but there's also a page that's just for the New Jersey Green Amendment. So, whereas on Facebook, you see every post about everything under the sun, if you join the app and join the New Jersey Green Amendment community, every post and every notification you receive that there is a post is just going to be about the New Jersey Green Amendment. You can ask your questions, offer your ideas, learn from others, read the hot news, and be engaged in a very proactive way. The app is very new. People are just now onboarding, but I really encourage you to go there. You can find it in the App Store on your phones or on your computer, or there is this little bit.ly, and actually, Bridget, we haven't done it yet, but we need to be putting the links on the action page of our websites. Mm-hmm. But look it up in your app store and get engaged. And of course, you can get the book and you can share it. The book is really an important and helpful tool. It is very up to date. If you were to purchase the book for yourself or to help get others involved, every penny of profit goes to the Green Amendment movement. None of it goes to Maya's pocket because we're really using the book to save the world. So thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate you. I'm going to stop the share and I am going to pass the baton to Dave.
All right. So I'm talking about the status of the Green Amendment legislatively, politically here in New Jersey and what the reality is. So first, I'm extremely pleased to report breaking news. I just found out about this in the last 5 or 10 minutes when I'm having this great conversation with all of you and doing a little prep work, because as always, I'm not as prepared as I would like to be. And I was checking a couple of things. And we have a new sponsor to the bill. As of yesterday, I just found out Senator Burgess became the 20th sponsor of the Green Amendment in the Senate. 20 in the Senate is very important because, as all of you legislative experts know, there are 40 senators in the Senate. So she just became number 20. So half the Senate is sponsoring the Green Amendment. Now you might say, wait a minute, we had 20, and we did. But that's because Senator Rice was the 20th and he just resigned, and Senator Burgess replaced him. And I spoke with her very quickly in late December, saying, hey, we should talk about this at some point. And then the holidays came and they've come and went. And yesterday was the first time the Senate could formally register any new co-sponsors or whatever. And evidently, handing her a flyer very quickly and having a 13-second conversation saying, I know Kim Gaddy, was enough between the holidays and early January for her before I could even talk to her more. She became a sponsor. So we can do this. That said, democracy's messy, isn't it? Anybody paying attention to Congress last week? Not a pretty look. I was especially moved in a troubled way by what was happening in January 6, 2023, as compared to what was happening on January 6, 2021, literally in the same physical space on Thursday night. People were debating in Congress who the next speaker should be, and regardless of where you fall in the political spectrum, that's a pretty moving experience in and of itself. First time in, I think, 150 years, it wasn't decided extremely quickly. And it happened literally 2 years to the minute in the exact same physical space, where for the first time since 1812, our capital was taken over by insurrectionists, rebels, opponents, however, and I don't mean Democrat versus Republican, but, the British ransacked the Capitol in 1812, and that was the last time anybody but the American people controlled Congress. So I say that because I think that personifies messiness, to say the least. And it's really hard. It's really, really hard to pass good, meaningful legislation. On the best, easiest day, it's really, really hard. Maya and I wanted this passed in 2018. And here it is. And we wanted it passed in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, and 2022. And here we are in 2023, damn it. And we're going to do our darndest to get it passed this year. A constitutional amendment in New Jersey is legislation, but it's different than regular legislation where it passes both houses and the governor signs it or not. And if he signs it, it becomes law. And if he vetoes it, the governor can override it. The legislature can override it and become law. That's part of the process here, but a constitutional amendment is a little different. Legislature has to pass it, but the governor doesn't have an official say. To amend the Constitution, the legislature has to say, yes, we should amend the Constitution, or more accurately, they're not saying, yes, we should amend it. They're saying, yes, we should give the people the chance to decide whether or not to amend it. Because technically what the legislature is passing isn't the Green Amendment. They're passing, authorizing the constitutional question whether or not the Constitution should be amended to incorporate the Green Amendment, and putting it to the people, putting it on the next November ballot for the people to decide. And if that happens by early August, it goes on the ballot that November. If it happens after early August and before November, it would be put on the ballot of the next November. Because you don't want to, in late October on Halloween say, yeah, we should amend the Constitution, says the legislature, and then 3 days later, with no public debate or discussion or education, have the electorate attempt to make an informed decision on whether that's a good constitutional amendment or not. So for the legislature to put on the ballot, they can do it one of two ways. The fastest way is for the legislature, 3/5 of each house, to vote to do so. And they have to vote on the exact same thing. And if 3/5 of both houses, the Assembly and the Senate, say, yes, let's do it, it's on the ballot. The other way you can do it is a little easier politically, but it takes a little longer, is 2 years in a row, a simple majority of the legislature pass it. So we have, for all you legislative hacks like me out there, I'm sure you know that we have 40 senators here in New Jersey and 80 assembly people. And for all you math experts out there, you know that 3/5 of 80 is 48 and 3/5 of 40 is 24. So to get on the ballot in 1 year, you need 48 assembly people and or 24 senators saying, yes, let's do it now. Or you need a simple majority, 41 and 21 in 2 years in a row. So that's in theory how it works. In reality, you can have 119 legislators supporting you and making it the most important thing ever. But if either one of two people say, yeah, I don't want it, or not now, or just refusing to allow it to vote, it doesn't happen. The Senate president and the Assembly speaker have unlimited authority. They and only they decide whether something goes up for a vote in the Assembly and in the Senate. the speaker in the assembly and the Senate president in the Senate. So you could have something pass 80-0 in the assembly and have 39 people demanding we put it up for a vote. But if the 40th person is a Senate president and they don't want it to happen, it's not happening. And the Senate president and the assembly speaker are only there because their colleagues have put them there. So, they're not going to willy-nilly abuse that power, but they have very strong, significant power. So thanks to the visionary work of legislators in the early 1970s in Pennsylvania, we got that first Green Amendment, and it came to life in 2014 in Pennsylvania. And Maya got the brilliant idea that we should have this everywhere. And by 2017, we had drafted this legislation here in New Jersey. And we have had lots of fits and starts in the last 5 and a few months, years since then. And we will not bore you with the details. Suffice it to say that the 2021 elections changed things and gave us better chances and hope than we had the first couple of years. I thought we would have made more progress since then than we have, but we continue to have much better chances than we have had in the last couple in the years before that. The 2020 elections happened for the Green Amendment. The most important thing was 2 people who will not be named were defeated, and they were the 2 biggest stumbling blocks for the Green Amendment in the Senate, one in the Senate, one in the Assembly. So, part of me thought, Eureka, we got this now. And as always, it's hard, but it's less hard now than it was in 2021. So since those folks got defeated, we have better chances, but it hasn't progressed as fast as we would have liked. And we still have a chance for this year, but we're not done yet. We have 20 sponsors in the Senate. We have 41 in the Assembly. We have bipartisan support. That might not sound like much, but if you pay attention to what happens in DC, very few things happen bipartisanly. If you pay attention to stuff in the legislature, very few things get the number of sponsors that we have gotten in the Green Amendment. Even fewer have significant numbers of members of both parties. We have 4 Senate Republicans and 7 Assembly Republicans. So, by far, the majority of sponsors are Democrats, but 4 Senate Republicans, that's 25% of the Senate Republican caucus. 7 Assembly Republicans is, I don't have the math in front of me, but it's a significant chunk of the Republican caucus. So that's significant and it's important. It's also not the be all and end all. If it was, we would already be living and enjoying the Green Amendment here in New Jersey in execution. Most folks that sponsor are doing it because they believe in it. Some of them, and it's difficult to figure out exactly who, are sponsoring it because, they can make us happy, but they kind of think it's not really going to move anyway. So, they can kind of have their cake and eat it too. So it's our job to keep moving, keep pushing, recognizing the process is messy. It sucks. It stinks. They should do the right thing for all the right reasons. But we know for both good and bad reasons, elected officials don't always do the right things for the right reasons. And I say right because I think I'm preaching to the choir here that we probably have a consensus of what right and wrong is. But in saying that, there can be reasonable debate and dialogue, and reasonable people can disagree on what right and wrong is on some of these details, but that's what the legislative process should be about. That's why we should have public hearings. That's why there should be committee meetings. That's why the bill should move. Let's put it up for a vote and discussion, and let's advance the debate. And we have struggled to get that done. We are remobilizing with our sponsors. Senator Zwicker has really started kicking things up. And if things go well, in about 20 or 25 minutes, we'll hear from him. We're trying to do a lot of schedule conflict working, but hopefully you'll hear from him. He's been a great champ. We need more people to become sponsors. We need the sponsors to push leadership to make this a priority. The Senate president and the Assembly Speaker are not opposing it. And that's progress because the previous Senate president did oppose it. But they're not saying, yes, I'm allowing it to come up for a committee hearing, let alone a floor vote or whatever. So we need to keep up the pressure, increase the pressure. It needs to be positive pressure, not you stink. Why haven't you done this? It needs to be, this is critical. It's important. Let's do this. So the second half of our webinar tonight, we'll be talking about a bunch of different kinds of things that folks can be doing to help make this happen. But I just want to close by being a little hokey and calling it audible. And I hope I'm not going to get in trouble here, but I am doing it anyway. I have just put in the chat what I think is a great column from a couple weeks ago. Tom Moran, the editorial page editor for the Star Ledger, wrote a column piece that said, "Is America the best country?" That's the wrong question. And I personally almost word for word agree with that op-ed. And I'm highlighting it here to emphasize the point that it's hard to move this stuff, but it's critical that we do. America, and that column is about America, but it could just as well be about New Jersey. It is the wrong question. It doesn't matter whether we're best or not. It matters, are we trying? Are we doing better? Are we trying to do better? Are we holding folks accountable? Are we moving? Nobody's perfect. All of us can be better as individuals. The Senate president, the Assembly Speaker, every single legislator, all 120 of them, even some I kiddingly in more private circles call maybe individual antichrists at time. They're all human. They are all wanting to do the right thing, however they would define it. There are some folks we're never going to agree with, but there's a majority we can agree with. But it's, as FDR once said to a bunch of progressives that he agreed with when he met with them in the White House, "I agree with you 100%. Now go make me do it." If and when we get the Green Amendment up for a vote, it's going to pass with flying colors. And it sucks that we have to make it be put up for a vote, but that's what we do. But that's what we have to do. And I hope, I know lots of folks on this call have already done a lot of great work on the Green Amendment. Please keep at it. Please do more. Folks that are new or thinking about getting more engaged, please do it. For those of you who don't know me, I've been working on these issues, and I'm kind of the progressive public interest, environmental, political, legislative hack of New Jersey. And I've been doing this since 1988. And I've worked on a ton of different issues and a ton of different, mostly environment, but a ton of other things. There isn't anything that I've worked on that is more important to me than the Green Amendment. Helped get a lot of great laws passed: Highlands Act, Clean Cars Act, the environmental justice law a couple of years ago, banning plastic bags. And that's all great and wonderful. I think the best example of it, how great and wonderful it is, and at the same time, 50 years from now, who gives a hoot, is the plastic bag ban bill. 50 years from now, people are going to be like, "You guys did what? You use plastic bags? You're crazy." It's going to be so last year. But the Green Amendment, I don't know how it's going to exactly be used in 50 years. In 1826, or more accurately, and let me get my numbers more accurate, in 1838, or in 1788, I'm pretty sure that the folks that wrote the Constitution didn't know exactly how the right to free speech was exactly going to be executed, but they damn sure thought it was important and blessed future generations to make it work. So that's our charge tonight. This generation is, I don't know exactly how the right to clean air and water will be interpreted and acted upon in 50 years. I'm 56, so I probably won't be here in 50 years, but my kids will be, and my grandkids will be, and future generations will be. And I want to make sure that they we leave this place as in the greatest place we can. And so it's our job to do that. So thank you for allowing me to get a little philosophic and lecture perhaps a bit. But let me turn it over to Kim, and she will ground us better than I just did.
Well, thank you, Dave, and thank you, Maya. Kim Gaddy, I'm the National Environmental Justice Director for Clean Water Action and the founder of the Southwater Environmental Alliance. And the Southwater Environmental Alliance is located in the south ward of the city of Newark. And we know all too well what the impacts of pollution can do in that community. I was glad to see one of my colleagues, former colleagues, may he continue to rest in peace, Kelly Francis from Camden, whom Maya showed. So you can take Camden, you could take Newark, you could take Patterson, you could take Elizabeth, you could take any EJ community. And in these communities, you will see the environmental degradation that exists because of the zip code these individuals live in, or the color of their skin, or their socioeconomic status. And that is environmental racism. That is something that is unfair. And so what really drives me to this work in the Green Amendment, making sure it is something that happens in this state, is because it will, as Maya stated, not only is it needed in our community, but it will be utilized to strengthen the environmental justice fights and issues that we have in our communities by ensuring that these frontline, fence line, marginalized communities be able to ensure that they have access, right, to clean air to breathe, safe, affordable drinking water, which is a human right. Like, that's our birthright. But unfortunately, it's not something that is equitable throughout my state in New Jersey. And so what is also important when you think about Camden and when you think about Newark and these EJ communities and cumulative impacts of pollution, just to give you a snapshot, I live, my home is the backyard of the second largest port in the United States, the port of New York and New Jersey, where 25 to 30,000 trucks come in and out that port every day. 3,500 stay on our local roads. We have the largest incinerator in the Northeast. Freeland Heights and Avenue has 6 different recycling facilities, 3 different metal recycling facilities, 1 Superfund site, warehouses. Amazon is the largest employer now in the state of New Jersey. So when you think about the cumulative impacts of pollution, you know, it is the diesel death zone for so many of us, and we can't escape from it, right? And it has become something that is so normalized in these communities. And it is unfair, right? Because we have the right to breathe clean air. We are dealing with health impacts where 1 in 4 children in the city of Newark are suffering from asthma. And what is most alarming is that in 2023, we are still having so many children and elderly individuals who are dying from asthma attacks, making it to the hospital in an ambulance and dying. And it is all because of the exposures to this pollution that they can't escape from. And so we need something to help to empower, to engage with our residents so that they can make a difference in their lives. They know what they need in their communities. They have the story and the narrative. But what we need now is the ability to have a Green Amendment and something that gives them the ability to execute, the ability to hold government accountable, the ability for folks to say no more toxic dumping in my community, right? No more pollution in my community just because this is something that you have been doing for years and years. Environmental justice communities need the Green Amendment because we are looking and striving each and every day to mitigate the pollution that we suffer from. And so our EJ communities are sick and tired of government saying, but we understand what your issue is. We might they might sympathize with us to some degree. But what we want is real solutions. What we want and what we need is action, right? And so we know that with the Green Amendment, this will give us that ability to access safe, clean, and affordable drinking water, right? In our communities. What we also know is this is just another tool in our toolkit, because we need different things that will motivate folks, that will engage folks. And this piece of legislation will help individuals to say, I can stand up, I can fight back, and I can and will see a difference. Right. And then, as Dave said, it is about making sure, I can't change the legacy and the history of pollution that happened in Newark years ago from industry. They came into the city of Newark, paint companies, polluting facilities that was close to the water and the river. They came here to build their companies, and they dumped into our rivers. They polluted our air. But as my mother told me as a child, when you know better, you do better. And so what we have to do is we have to use this Green Amendment as that hammer. You know better, so you have to do better. And this is what these communities need. This is the change that we need to make sure that we are not endangering the lives of so many individuals that live in these communities and can't escape, right? And even if some could escape, some folks want to stay in these communities because they're great communities. Jersey City, Newark, Elizabeth, these are great cities to live, right? But what we want is a better quality of life. What we want is the ability to change the siting of some of these polluting facilities that continue to just come into our community and use our neighborhoods as sacrifice zones. That is something that we must change. And so we know that the time is up right now. You can see what is happening all in California and across this country with climate. The intensity of the storms, the rain, snow, all of that is happening. Our time is up. We have to make a difference right now for environmental justice and for climate justice. And so utilizing what we have with the Green Amendment, utilizing the knowledge and the fight that Maya has and all the supporters that are on this Zoom today, we can make that difference. And so I just wanted to come on here for a few minutes and just give you a snapshot into what my personal experience is. And my experience is the same experience in all EJ communities. But we do know, for a matter of fact, that if we all come together, and especially in this great state of New Jersey, it took us over 12 years to fight for an environmental justice cumulative impacts law. The regulations will hopefully be finished in a few months. We have a governor who talks about environmental justice and making sure that he is going to protect those that are impacted the most. We have legislators that believe that everyone, regardless of their zip code, should be able to live in healthy and vibrant neighborhoods and communities. And so we have to utilize that to make them be held accountable, right? And utilize that political will to really make a difference to save people's lives in this state. And so I am confident, and I that this is going to be a better year than last year. I know I will be engaging once again because I had stepped out for a couple months to do some other work. But we have to do this now. We have to continue to strike while the iron is hot. So I thank each and every one of you for the part and the role that you have had. And I just wanted to let you know that the EJ communities are right with you. And the Green Amendment is something that we need to change the situation that so many individuals suffer from on a daily basis. So I thank you, and looking forward to the changes we need. Power to the people. Thank you.
Oh, man, Kim. Kim is always empowering and inspiring. Thank you for that. You are too, Dave, but in a different way, because you have more functional stuff to do. So what we thought was, before we go on to some of the more functional things to do, we did have a few questions in the chat, sort of about the substance or the way the Green Amendment works, and wanted to be sure we took those on. If you have something really hot and burning, raise your hand, but wanted to pick up a few of the chat questions first because they seem important. So one of the questions is, what is the difference between the Green Amendment and the rights of nature movement? Where do these initiatives work together and where do they conflict? First off, they don't conflict. So that's important to know. But the rights of nature are really about ensuring that when there's been a legal violation that's having consequences for the environment, that and there's an opportunity for people to enforce that law to make things right, rather than having to find a person who's been damaged and can come forth as the plaintiff to enforce that law. The rights of nature says you don't need that damaged person. All you need is damaged nature, and sort of that river, that forest, that ecosystem can come into the courtroom and the lawyer can speak directly for the ecosystem. The thing is when the laws are fundamentally failing us, when they're fundamentally flawed, when they're written in a way that allows that pollution, damage, degradation, devastation of the ecosystem, in my mind, it doesn't really matter who's enforcing the law, a person or a damaged person or a forest or a river, you're not really any better off. What a Green Amendment is, it really is about the rights of people, because that's fundamentally what the Constitution is. It's we, the people, laying out the authority that we're giving to government, but also the rules of the road. And again, identifying those areas that they may not infringe upon. So it is fundamentally about the rights of people, but it really is raising the bar on environmental protection, so that when those laws are not enough to protect the environments that are critical for nature and people, we, the people, can lift that bar up and again, raise it, get better protections by turning to this right to clean water and clean air, not just simply enforcing a law that legalizes pollution and degradation and devastation because of the permit that was issued. So I think that they are powerful and important and ultimately complementary. I think that the rights of people and the Green Amendment movement get you a lot farther, a lot faster, because I think everybody believes that all people have a right to clean water. Not everybody believes that nature should have rights that are recognized. So if we pursue the rights of people first, we get that higher level of protection first. We get more progressive, positive, powerful environmental protection in the near term. But we also do have the opportunity to change the way people start to think about the power and importance of environmental protection. And I think we do bring them along in their thinking with regards to nature, the rights of nature, as well as the rights of people. And I think we start to help create a foundation that could ultimately result in rights of nature in the state of New Jersey in the future. What criteria are used to determine what is safe? I think we talked about that, Elizabeth. That is not, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that is part of the legislative, executive, judiciary process that is undertaken for every term in the Constitution and in every law. A lot of laws use the term clean and safe and healthy, right? And they get defined through the process, through implementation, and when necessary, through court intervention. The same is going to happen with the Green Amendment and those terms. How does the newly enacted New Jersey Department of Environmental Justice complement or negate this proposed New Jersey Green Amendment? I'm not sure if we've lost Kim yet and if she wants to speak to this. If you're on, Kim, get on, but otherwise I'll just speak briefly. This really helps strengthen and empower and complement the new fantastic environmental justice legislative and regulatory successes that the New Jersey environmental justice community has achieved. Just like I talked about the Green Amendment, strengthening existing laws on the books, helping to fill gaps, the same will happen with the new environmental justice law. It will strengthen its interpretation and its implementation. And in those places and spaces where there's a loophole or that law can't do it on its own, the Green Amendment will help us fill the gap. And we are wonderfully joined by Senator Zwicker, one of our most powerful legislative champions. And so before we go on with the questions, I would love Senator Zwicker to turn the podium, so to speak, over to you so you can share your pearls of wisdom and inspiration for us all.
Oh, I have no pearls of wisdom. I was listening like everybody else. Hey, everybody, it's good to see you on Zoom. I think just picking up what Maya said, though, I'll just jump right in on that with the EJ law, which is great, one of the most powerful in the state. But if you can pass a piece of legislation, you can unpass a piece of legislation. And as Maya's talked about many, many times, a constitutional amendment, the Green Amendment, is something that once we get it done, yeah, it's hard to get it done, but when we get it done, then it's just there forever. And that right to clean air and clean water and clean land becomes part of the most sacred piece of documentation that we have in our state. So I couldn't agree more with what Maya just said. The EJ law and the Green Amendment just complement each other and becomes part of an entire package. And the only other thing I want to say is this is the perfect grassroots movement. And what you're doing here in New Jersey, what Maya's leading around the whole country, state by state, right? It is community by community. It is state by state. It is the organizing that we're doing. It is the groundswell that we're doing so that it's just not stopping it. I'm proud to be one of the sponsors in the state Senate. We're working hard to get a hearing in place in this session and then to get it in front of the people, because we know once it's in front of the people, I heard that as I was popping on, everyone is for clean air and clean environment. So the people will overwhelmingly support this. So it's really just making sure we get the political momentum behind it. And that's happening with all of you. So I'm thrilled to be here for a couple of minutes and very grateful for all of your advocacy on behalf of the Green Amendment.
So before you leave, Senator, would you mind taking a question or two if people raise their hands? It's such a great opportunity to engage.
AMA, ask me anything.
Does anybody want to boldly go forth and ask the senator a question? I'm looking for hands up.
And if you haven't already, buy the book. It's a great book.
JJ,
I see your hands.
you have to unmute,
you're
JJ. There you go.
Here. Can you unmute yourself, JJ? How about you type your question in the chat? This doesn't seem to be unmuting.
I've got one while JJ works in the technical stuff. Hello, Senator. Thank you for joining us tonight. You know, the Democrats, New Jersey is up for election, both the full Senate and the full Assembly this fall, this November. Giving the overwhelming support for environmental programs, especially when they're on the ballot, they win very successfully. Do you think that this could be a success to the Democrats maintaining a majority in the Senate and Assembly if it was on this November's ballot?
That's a really interesting question that I hadn't thought about before. The short answer is yes, I think so, right? There was lots of discussion around reproductive freedom in the past as something we need to protect in New Jersey and something that will get people out to the polling locations to vote. And I think a constitutional amendment to guarantee that, not just for us, but our children, grandchildren, et cetera, have a clean environment is another example where it will drive people out to vote, because you can imagine, especially young people who we know are such an important block for them. It's about climate change. It's about what sort of earth they're going to have in front of them. I can easily see this as a motivator to get young people to come out and vote. Did JJ type his question?
I'm looking, so I've lost, I've lost my screen.
There we go.
JJ,
Yeah.
you want to try and unmute again?
He just put it into the chat too.
Oh. Okay.
How will the law affect the town?
Oh, there you go. Once,
Go ahead, Senator, can you read it?
Yeah, so once we get law in, how will the law affect the towns that have big problems? There are those who will complain the cost will be too high to correct. I think there's a couple of things here, right? Is that one is technical, right? This isn't a law, this is a constitutional amendment, which then often is getting resolved in the courts. But this becomes a political battle over, do you want to spend a little bit of money up front or an enormous amount of money after a major weather event, after a major cleanup of an environmental area? So this is taking some longer term thinking that says, if we're willing to put this investment in place now, we actually save money in the long run.
So,
June, I don't know if this is a question for me.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for coming and speaking to us again. You're such a strong advocate for all of us. And my question is, what can we do, all of us out here, to help get more sponsors for this bill, for this constitutional amendment?
If you haven't, and Maya knows the exact numbers in New Jersey, it's getting close to enough sponsors that passage is guaranteed. If you haven't already reached out to your local state senator, your local members of the assembly, you should. Strongly urge you to both pick up the phone and write an email. Personal messages make an enormous impact on us. We listen to our constituents. That's our job. I think that's the by far the number one thing that you can do. Being very straightforward, I will get on some topics that are controversial, I will get hundreds upon hundreds of form emails. The vast majority don't come from my constituents. When I get a personal telephone call, a personal email, a personal letter from a constituent, it has an enormous amount of weight. And so regardless of where you live, it would be a matter of finding out whether or not your representative is already sponsoring it. And if not, then urging him or her to do so and getting groups of people to do that. So it's not just your one voice, but multiple people within that particular legislative district.
That's wonderful. I think that was what we should do. And I'm wondering if Maya and company can perhaps draft some kind of format for us, something that we can modify and that would encourage us, rather than having a blank piece of paper, having a structure to contact people. And secondly, a list of the legislators who have already signed on to this constitutional amendment. That would
So
be
June?
very helpful. Yes.
That's a great idea. Get on the app, man. I think that's a great place to put it, on the app.
and
So I'll put that on the to-do list. Thank you for that. A lot of information about who the legislators are and everything, that's on the website. So I'll encourage people to go there. Dave works really hard to make sure that we're on that. Dave, did you want to speak to something?
yeah, just want to, there's, it needs to be updated because it's constantly changing. We're constantly evolving, but there is also on the website. And Bridget, why don't you put the link in if you think it needs to be updated, but I think it's good enough that we should just put in the link, all the different ways you can help. It includes, there is a sample letter out there. There's, for folks that are social media savvy, there's sample tweets and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And to the senator's point, everything matters. But one of the upsides of social media, and there certainly are some downsides, is social media is public facing, whereas a personal phone call or a letter or an email is just a private communication between you and the individual legislator. But when you post, thank you, Senator Zwicker, for being a champion on the Green Amendment, or hey, Senate President Scutari, post the Green Amendment, all of us have different levels of media savviness, but I know enough about Twitter. When I do post on Twitter, something will come up that says, 10 minutes later, 121 impressions. That means 121 people saw my post. And that elected official knows 121 people saw my communication with him, because I tagged him and everybody else saw it. So, Associated Press did a study a couple of years ago that said, a well-crafted social media post is more powerful than that private communication. But as the senator also mentioned, the constituent to legislator matters more than anything else.
So I want to, Senator, I don't know how, I think we only have you for a few more minutes, yes?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I thought we would do one more question. I know that the next person who was in line was Joe. So I wanted to make sure you got a chance to ask your question directly.
Thank you. Senator Zwicker made so many good points. I want to contact my legislators, but I don't think they care a whole lot about, I don't think that's a priority for them, but I know they care about money. Can we get some fresh, up-to-date numbers from a good source about how much the climate disasters are costing our state? Today, I read that this nation is spending over $5 billion for the climate events that happened just this year. And I remember posting on Facebook that anybody who's, this is penny wise, pound foolish. We can't afford to make changes. However, we can afford to spend $5 billion to fix it. Well, what about in our state? Can we put the money up out front? The senator already said it. We have to take the long view. So are there fresh numbers that we can really count on to use in our posts or in our letters?
I'm sure there are. I don't have them.
Okay.
I know that, for instance, Ida was billions of dollars of damage in New Jersey, and the loss of, I forget the number now, but it was a tragic loss of life on top of that.
Yeah.
So the numbers are overwhelming.
Yeah.
The response numbers after a major weather event compared to the costs up front to do something. But that becomes very much a political thing, because you're saying, the political reality is we're saying, let's spend X dollars for an event somewhere in the future that we don't know when is going to happen.
Right.
That's a harder argument, unfortunately, than let's spend 10 times that, 100 times that, 1,000 times to repair things because we're responding. We're being reactive as opposed to proactive. And unfortunately, that is a political issue that we have to overcome. And I'm sure it's true, not just in New Jersey, but around the country.
So, Senator, I'm going to burden you with one more, because I know about the same time Joe's hand went up, Robin's hand went up, and I don't want to. So can we get you for one more and let Robin ask her question?
Anything for Robin. I know Robin.
Thank you, Andrew. Nice to see you. All right, so here's my question. I'm new to this party. I have been very active in politics, in New Jersey politics, for the past 5 years. And what I have not noticed is the Green Amendment. I don't know how high up on the scale it is for all of our representatives. And I don't know how much I guess what I'm trying to say is, if everyone's going to vote for this in the state, and you're all so sure about that, if it makes it to the ballot, what's the Achilles heel? Why isn't everyone getting behind it in this assembly, in the Senate?
So I'll give a short answer, and Maya can give the details because she's seen it all over the country.
Yeah.
So it is a lack of understanding of what the potential secondary effects might be, right? Because as like when I logged on there, everybody's like, who's going to be against a clean environment? There's a I'm a mistake. There's a feeling out there that this will lead to frivolous lawsuits, and that all of a sudden the court will get bogged down. The equivalent of, I just read another person has sued Dunkin' Donuts for hot coffee, and the ridiculousness that we all know of, you get a cup of coffee and it says caution, contents hot, as if somehow, that's what we've come down to, what we need now to remind ourselves that we like our coffee hot, except in the summer. And so, Robin, there's this notion, which is really what the political battle is about, that if we pass this, all of a sudden the courts get bogged down. There's all these lawsuits, they're all frivolous. And I was fortunate enough to do an event with Maya a couple months ago. And Maya, how many frivolous lawsuits are out there?
Zero.
Zero.
Right. Mhm.
Right. But that's the facts, right? Getting to the various members of the legislature to understand that that's what this is about too. So when you're reaching out to your legislators, I think it does make sense to also address leave it up to Dave and others on how to address this the right way. But this is all positive and no negative, right?
Right, but
And
how are we going to
that's
get?
what we got to get past.
But how are we going to get the voters to really wrap their brains around this? Because, the ERA, we're still waiting for that, right? That just has to be archived. It's such a no-brainer that, everyone should have an equal right. So my fear is that, do you guys have, and there again, I apologize for this is my first time on. Do you guys have a great marketing strategy in place to get to the voters if we can get this on the ballot in November?
That's a Maya
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So Robin, we're gonna hop over that.
Okay.
Because that really is part of what we're doing, and that is part of the engagement. But in the first instance, we have to get a hearing.
Yeah.
Before the legislature, and getting the hearing is going to be a powerful tool for awareness raising and engagement. And the lack of progress within the legislature has created some, hurdles on that front, right? So, but that is all part of the dynamics of what we're doing.
Awesome.
And what the training is a part of. So with that,
Thanks.
if it's okay, we're going to hold off. We're going to thank the senator very much for his leadership and his time. You're really a powerful voice, and we're very grateful.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for everyone who's on. And I'll see you in the State House at the hearing.
Take care.
All right. Take care.
So
Everyone.
before we go on with the other questions, and there are some that we'll try to get to at the end, but we do have some really other great presenters. And so want to make sure that we get onto that, because that really is about taking action. And so next was going to be, who was next? Eric.
Hey, thank you. Give me 1 second to get settled here. Good questions. While I'm pulling some material here, Robin, great question. And I think while I'm thinking about this and pulling up my materials, step one, you got to get it on, the ballot. And then, so we're going one step at a time here. And New Jersey, voters overwhelmingly support environmental programs. And that was part of my question to the senator. I said, I think this helps the Democrats out here because environmental voters will show up, and we've never, they quote me if I'm wrong, but never, sunk a pro-environmental measure on the ballot. Funding came up. That's even a dicey issue, but we continue to pass it here. So my name is Eric Benson. I'm Clean Water Action's New Jersey Campaigns Director. And I love working with Maya and David and Kim, on this Green Amendment. Clean Water Action is a national organization, but I really like working on the statewide and the New Jersey level. We're the most densely populated in the nation. We've got more Superfunds sites, which is like the federal government's the worst list than anyone else in the nation. We've got mountains, farms, urban, beach landscapes. We're a diverse state. So we've got a lot that we're working with here, and the Green Amendment, it's common sense to me, and I like advocating and working to get it passed. I know that when you watch your news or taking your news, we think about the federal government. Who's my congressman? Who's my U.S. senator? I think everyone here knows who Bob Menendez and Cory Booker. They're making national headlines on a daily basis. but how important, things that are going on in Trenton, what happens in Trenton, and how that impacts you in your day-to-day life. It's important. The New Jersey, we pass a $45 billion budget every year. I'll never see that money in my lifetime, but how the state spends its money reflects on its values, and to think about how the districts and who represents you. We have 12, based on population, 12 US congressional seats, and that's by population. We got about 9 million people here in New Jersey. And and the people that we send to Trenton, there's 40 different districts. Every district has a state senator and 2 assembly members. But if you take 9 million people and divide it up by 12, or you get about 700,000 people per district. Or if you look at it on this New Jersey level, where we have 40 districts, 9 million divided by 40 is about 250,000 people. And so your voice and your phone calls and your activism on a per person basis, it goes further, working on this statewide level. And the other thing I like really about working on this kind of statewide level, towns push the states, states push the federal government, and I really like this this kind of the airplane view, the 20,000 foot level, 9 million people, because when something happens in New Jersey, it impacts 9 million people on day one. Individual action's good. You can go out and you can pick up the trash on the beach, and that's helpful. But the next high tide that comes and goes, there's more trash on the beach. So we need to work on this on a more systemic level. So this is some of the reasons that one, I love working on the New Jersey level, and really why I think the Green Amendment has an opportunity to really be transformative here. So just think about that in the back of your mind. I'm going to share my screen, and knowledge is power. And I'm going to share some wealth with you here. Because it's nice to have the experts, and you can use this as a resource anytime, but also being able to find the information firsthand, I think, is also very valuable. So I'm a Google person, better or worse, the privacy issues, I don't love or hate. I'm not endorsing Google, but it's just my go-to. Bing, Yahoo, whatever you like to use. You search New Jersey legislature, takes you right, almost any search engine, it'll take you right to their homepage. Here is where I get all my information that I use to execute, operate, and do things. Step one, we're going to cover the 100 level through 400 level college level courses here of how to lobby in about 10 minutes. So New Jersey legislature, this is the homepage. This is where I get a lot of my information as my job. And as an activist, I think it's very empowering. And we're going to talk about how we can use this information to advance the Green Amendment tonight. But you can use this information if you're real big on education, you're real, interested in ERA, So here's where you get a lot of the information firsthand yourself without having to wait for me to respond to your email. Members, I like to do district list. And here's 1 through 40 districts. I hit, I'm a PC, not a Mac. Control F, so I'm finding, I live in Montclair, New Jersey. Montclair. I live in, Montclair is in District 34. I can click that district. And here is my New Jersey senator and my New Jersey assembly members. And these are the people that go down to Trenton to represent me. Senator Nia Gill, Assemblyman Thomas Giblin, and Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake. So it's just good to know, who are your legislators? Some of them are your neighbors. I live about 2 or 3 blocks away from Senator Gill. There's 3 to 5 or 7 towns, depending on the district. These people are local. Some of them, very often kind of work their way up the ranks. They were the mayor or a council person in your town, and they build a base, and then they grow and they take the next step in their political career, and they become a New Jersey legislator. These people, might be, Congress members down the road. So, but they're local, and so know who they are and how to find them. It's got their office address on here, their phone number for the legislative office. It shows you what committees that they serve on, which is helpful to know if they are a person of power, if they chair any committees, then they have an out. They have a higher value, or they have more feedback and opportunity to weigh in on legislation on the committee that they chair in. So I don't have any people on the environmental committees where the Green Amendment currently is. But if you live in somebody's district, like Assemblyman Kennedy, he's in the assembly, he's like Middlesex. He is your legislator, but the bills that pass through his committee, including Green Amendment, impact all of us. And so if you're a constituent of Assemblyman Kennedy, it's good to know who your legislator is and what their opportunities of power are. We talked a little bit about Senate. David says, oh, you can have 119 legislators on board, but if one of them is not the Senate president, or if one of them is not the Assembly speaker, they don't put it up for a vote, and it's not going to go anywhere. And so if you live in District 18, I think that's Assemblyman Coughlin, he is the Assembly speaker. So he represents you and a couple of Middlesex towns, but he has a big power of what gets moved or doesn't get moved on the whole body. And so it's good to know what those are. Let's switch my things here. Okay, so know your state's process. We have 40 districts in New Jersey. This is Assemblyman Coughlin, and here's Senate President Nick Scutari. We have 2 assembly members per district and 1 senator per legislative district. Going back to the New Jersey Legislature website, who your legislators are, what they stand for. I'm going to show you one more thing about the Green Amendment. So there's different actions that we can ask and lobby when you make a phone call, when you write an email, if you see them at the 4th of July parade in town. What's the next step that they can take? If it's somebody that is already a co-sponsor of the New Jersey Green Amendment, then they need to take the next step and ask leadership or the committee chairs to put it up for a vote. And so, if they're not a co-sponsor yet, then that's the first step. We need to ask them to become a co-sponsor. So New Jersey Legislative homepage also has, here's the bill search. I put this in the chat earlier. I'll copy and paste it and put it up again. With the Green Amendment, you can search SCR 15. And you can see here, there's a Senate version, an identical bill number, ACR. So there's a Senate version and Assembly version of every bill that comes forth. We're working on a constitutional amendment here. The legislature has to pass it, and then it'll go on the ballot for voters to vote on. So SCR 15, if you click that, it'll give you a list of who all the current Senate co-sponsors are. So someone joins within a day or two, this is up to date. So we'll work to make sure our internal webpage is always up to date, but you can get the information firsthand by going to the New Jersey Legislative webpage. You can skip us altogether. You can see, what does the Green Amendment say? Introduced PDF. You click this and it'll show you, what does the Green Amendment that's proposed in New Jersey say? And it says 11122. Introduced, referred to the Senate Environment and Energy Committee. So how a bill becomes law, it gets, all of these, bills or constitutional amendments, they get referred to committee. Think of that as like a small group workshop where all 40 senators are not going to debate this on the floor. They send it to the small committee, the environmental committee. There's 5 people. Will fine tune it, maybe make some amendments, make some changes, clean it up, discuss it, have a public hearing, but they're going to do that with a 5-member group, not the 40-member group. So they're going to start there. You can also click and see, what the Assembly ACR, identical bill number, and here's a list of the current Assembly speakers, Assembly co-sponsors. I'm gonna go back to my other screen. Okay, so who's your legislator? Where do they stand? Do a little bit of research. It's good to know. Setting up meetings with your legislators. We're in a time now where, I'm still having a lot of my legislative meetings digitally. That has some benefits. One, my kids got COVID in preschool. And so I'm not able to be in person at this time. But if you schedule a meeting with a legislator and it's digitally, then if your kid gets sick or coming up here in the winter season, maybe it's a big snow day, you might get this meeting scheduled 3 weeks out, and you don't know it's going to snow 3 feet in 3 weeks from now. So the benefits of having the Zoom meeting is that you avoid some of those possibilities. or externalities, and you can also have more people from more places. You know, Maya's coming in from Western or South New Jersey. Eric Benson lives in North Jersey, and maybe you live in the district. So with less traveling, you can have more people on. But in person, has some, you make eye contact, you can read the room, you can get a sense of, what everyone's background is. You can have some small talk. You can, side chat with allies before, while you're waiting for your meeting with the legislator. So there's pluses and minuses of in-person and digital. I'm doing both these days. But schedule a meeting whenever I can. I like to bring in allies and supporters of the Green Amendment that are from the district. They're not hard to set up. You just got to be persistent, but you can call the office, you can email the staff. A lot of times we're going to talk about lobbying in person, but you can do like follow-ups. Oh, I saw you at the 4th of July parade. I'd love to talk to you further about the Green Amendment. I'm going to show you how to find the direct person to reach out to and help you move things along here, and keep track so that you can say, here's the last time I saw you, or you agreed to a meeting, I'm following up on that. So keep track of who you talk to and when, so that you can hold legislators, and say, I'm interested in a meeting, hold them to their word. Do some research before you jump into the meeting. If you're doing it digitally, having a good understanding of what the technical aspects are, what's the agenda, who's going to talk about what part. So we brought Maya in to talk about the big picture. I'm going to talk about how this person, why I'm personally passionate and impacted on this. Is there not going to be no kid taker? And I always like to take a picture. So who's going to be the picture taker when you have an in-person or a Zoom meeting? So you put that on social. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Here's a couple points on conducting the meeting. Generally, like what is it that you're working to get out of it? So again, is the goal here to have them become a co-sponsor? If they're already co-sponsored, know that going into the meeting. And then the goal is to have them ask leadership to have the constitutional amendment in a public hearing. I like paying attention to who the staff is. The legislators, they're figureheads. But being a legislator in New Jersey is a part-time job. They are the key decider, but it's the staff that work behind the scenes that make everything happen. So who's attending the meeting? What can they do to help facilitate and help move things along? After your meeting, follow-up is going to be key. It depends on the level of engagement, the level of interest, and what steps they take. If you ask them to become a co-sponsor, and then they do, that's great news. So then how are you going to thank them? You're going to send them a direct response. You can put something on social media, that's going to be more public. So think about what is the outcome of the meeting, and how can you take the next steps. And always David, Maya, myself, Kim, we want the information that you get out of your meetings. What's the intel? And we're able to coalesce it on a bigger picture, and that's what's just happening in one district, but what's happening in all 40 districts in New Jersey. If you get a chance, again, I'm a resource. I'm in Trenton. Mondays and Thursdays are legislative days. I'm glad to take anyone down on a state house. I'll give you the tour. It's a little bit like walking around Hogwarts. If you're any Harry Potter fans out there, I'll show you all the secret doors, all the secret staircases. And I know a lot of legislators, just by their face, I can point you in the right direction. But in-person lobby days, you're thinking about keeping it short and simple. And most times when you see a legislator in the Hall of Trenton or at the 4th of July parade, you're not going to get a lot of time. It's not going to be a long conversation, but I'm going to get to elevator speech in a second, in a minute. But what can you say in 30 seconds? Get your name, your face, the organization, and what are we asking of you in 30 seconds or less, and that gives you a springboard to follow up and take the next step. Oh, I saw you in Trenton. I'm so glad. Thank you for taking a minute. It was a pleasure to meet you. Now I'd like to set up a meeting. So so here's some in-person lobby days, and I'm going to share these slides. I know we're going to do things very quickly here, but I'm glad to share these. after the presentation as well. Lobbying on the fly, this is my go-to sample here. Hi, my name, this is my 15 seconds. If I catch a legislator at all, I'm Eric Benson. I'm with Clean Water Action. I'm working on passing a green amendment, a constitutional amendment, for clean air and clean water. I have young kids. I have two little ones, a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. And I want to make sure that they have a healthier and better and guaranteed right to a clean environment than I did. Can you please co-sponsor the Green Amendment? My Montclair, New Jersey legislators happen to all be on. I'm glad to see that. So my ask might be, can you ask the Senate President to put it up for a vote? Can you ask the Assembly Speaker to put it up for a vote? Can you ask, another legislator to become a co-sponsor? So that if I got stuck with an elevator, I have a pitch I can send to them in 30 seconds to a minute and a half. And the other thing that this formula, quote unquote formula, is good for is talking to the press. I don't love talking to the press and I get a little bit nervous, but if I've got my formula, if I stick to my talking points and I say the same thing over and over again, I become more confident. I've got it memorized, and I'm glad to say that. And they can't twist my message if I have the same message every time. So the other thing is I put on here just to have to be informed. These are good ways to know what's going on with around the state of New Jersey. We're sort of between two media centers. There's New York City, there's Philadelphia, and so these are reputable sources. They all have a daily alert. If you search Politico NJ, they've got a newsletter, Insider NJ, NJ Monitor. So I put my email address in. I get their daily news alerts. I don't have time to click on every link that they send me, but I'm always keeping an eye out what's going on in the environment, what's going on with my legislators. And then it's cut off here at the bottom, but you can set an alert, Google alert for your own legislators. So, and this is my last slide, and this is a super secret lobbying secret trick. So you can contact the legislators online. You can also email them directly. All the legislators sort of follow, like 99% of them follow the same formula. So if my senator is Senator Gill, SEN Gill @njledge.org. This is Assemblyman, Assemblywoman. So when I contact my legislators, I type in ASM Giblin @njledge.org. It's going to go to his office, ASW Timberlake @njledge.org. And the other thing is, if you're trying to set up a meeting, you're having trouble, getting a hold of someone, you're not quite getting the response. I search on Google for chief of staff. So Assemblywoman Timberlake, chief of staff. And I usually get a name. Here's the first name, here's the last name. And so if you want to reach out directly to the staff or the people that run the things behind the show, behind the curtain, it's first initial, last name @njledge.org. So if I get a name of a chief of staff just by searching Google, it comes up on LinkedIn, it comes up on news, it comes up on different places that I'm able to get a hold of them directly by using this formula. And with that, I'll cede the rest of my time.
Great. Thank you very, very much for that, Eric. That was really helpful. So we're going to now quickly have Ayana is going to talk to us about social media.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen really quick. Okay, just got it up. All right, so my name's Ayana Snowden, and I'm with the New Jersey Student Sustainability Coalition, and I work on the Green Amendment team within it, and I help with outreach. I used to help with local resolutions, and I've done social media stuff for Bye Bye Plastic Bags. So my presentation will be about using social media to promote the Green Amendment and its value, how to do it, and more. So you may be wondering why social media, and honestly, the main reasons why social media is a great tool is because of the low barriers to entry. So anyone has access to it. Anyone can make a post as long as you have access to internet, and it's just very easy. It also can be used to get the word out really fast with all the sharing features. It can easily snowball, and it can get shared around in like specific communities and things like that. And then you also have an access to a wide demographic. So when you're posting something out on the internet, you don't know who will see it necessarily. There are ways to target it, but it's generally out in the open to the public. So it's a really great tool for that reason. So before using social media, it's important to set a purpose because with the wide audience, you also get like, I don't know, it can become too general of an audience. So sometimes you might want to target a specific audience depending on your purpose. So that could be in New Jersey Student Sustainability Coalition's case, it would be like young people often and students, but you could also target local representatives, politicians, and constituents of specific districts. Additionally, you might want to consider whether or not you have a specific ask. So that could be for a representative co-sponsoring the Green Amendment. It could be signing a petition, joining a group, taking an action, something like that. And then you also want to consider your goal. So this is pretty closely related to the ask, and it just like what makes sure that you know what you want to come out of your social media post. Okay, so this next bit is going to be about like how to choose a platform, and I only really covered 3 main platforms for the purpose of like conciseness, but there are other platforms that you can use, and this is not like fully comprehensive. So the first one is Instagram, and this is mainly what we use at NJSSC. And the pros are that Instagram, you can have like very easy access to a younger demographic. I know most people my age in like high school have Instagram and use it pretty frequently. It's also highly visual, so it's great for using pictures and infographics that are like colorful, attention grabbing. And there's also a wide audience, like with most social media platforms, but for Instagram especially, there are things you can do like using tags and hashtags that will help you reach more people. And then there's also a really good opportunity for one-on-one engagement through the DM system, which allows you to like contact other organizations like in private so that you can like talk to them about resharing your post if you want, and you can talk to them about like forming a partnership with your group. And then some of the cons are that it's not ideal for large amounts of information just because of how visual it is. You kind of want to keep it short and sweet with Instagram. And then also it's not really the best for targeting certain groups because while there is like an algorithm that will help the groups you want to see it, it's not really like Facebook where you can just join a Facebook group and then have that group see all of what you want to see. Oh, and then the next one is Facebook. So the pros are that it's easy to target groups. Like I was mentioning before, you can join a Facebook group depending on who you want to reach. And there's also an older demographic. So if that's what you are looking for, then that's probably better. Additionally, like Instagram, there's a great opportunity for one-on-one engagement through the messaging system. And there's a good balance between visual and text on Facebook. So it doesn't have to be like the most attention grabbing like Instagram would for people to click on it. However, the cons are that it's hard to reach youth through Facebook since the demographic is mostly older. And I know a lot of people my age don't really use Facebook. And additionally, some Facebook groups are exclusive and they may not let you in. So it will be hard to reach specific groups if that's what you're going for. Oh. And the last social media platform I'll be talking about is Twitter. So this is probably one of the best for reaching politicians because most elected officials are on Twitter, so you could tag them. And it's the best for text-heavy information because that's what most tweets are. However, there's a word limit, so it kind of does have to be short and sweet as well, but you can start a thread or something like that. And it's the easiest to post because you can just kind of open your phone and just type out a post, and it doesn't really have to be as planned and calculated as Facebook or Instagram might have to be. However, on Twitter, it's harder to gain traction like it is unlike Instagram, at least, because you can kind of like find ways to get your post reshared and stuff. But on Twitter, it's just like the retweet system. And on Twitter, it's not ideal for one-on-one engagement as you're mostly just putting out some text for a bunch of people to see. And additionally, it's not ideal for infographics or other visual information because it's mostly just the tweets and the text. So now I'll get into more of the details about how to actually make a post. So you should choose the right format based on your platform. So like I was saying before, Instagram and Facebook might be better for an infographic or like a visual flyer post or something like that, whereas Twitter might be better for like a text post that targets a specific elected official. Additionally, you should make sure that like if you're using Instagram and you're using a pre-made infographic, you should also include a compelling caption that sums up the post and includes a bit of like your own personal ideas, so it's not just like this like overproduced thing that is not really your voice. Additionally, you should use tags and hashtags as needed. So tags are like basically when you like include another organization in the post as well so that they can see it and their followers can see it if they check their like tagged posts. And that just helps with like getting engagement and getting audiences that you might want from other organizations. And also hashtags are very helpful. I believe there's an NJ Green Amendment hashtag that exists already, and you can just use things like that, like environment, Green Amendment. And also you should make sure that the language and narrative you use is consistent with what Green Amendment for the Generations uses in their language. And here, I don't know if this presentation, can I share this presentation with everyone after?
We're gonna put it on the app so people will be able to find it there. But yeah, this is really powerful, Ayana.
Okay, so these are the resources that Green Amendment for the Generations has. So I'll just go through some of them. There's this one where you can send a pre-made tweet and it's a click to tweet system, which is pretty convenient. And then there's also some infographics that they have that you can post on your Instagram or Facebook with minimal effort. And then also there are some resources linked that NJSC has. And this is one that I actually made, and it just talks about what the Green Amendment is and why we kind of need one in New Jersey. And it takes more of like an environmental justice focus, but you can use any kind of focus, whether it's like for the future generations, like for the youth and stuff, or it could just be like environmental justice. And these are posts that NJSC has made on its story. And it kind of just talks about like the Green Amendment and how to get involved. And you could also design your own post for the Green Amendment, but like I said before, it's important to make sure that your language is consistent. And this is a little bit more energy intensive, but I recommend the platform Canva for making an Instagram post or something like that. Thank you for listening. Does anyone have any questions, or should we just move on?
So we're gonna pick up questions at the end, Ayana, so we can make sure everybody hears the material. But my gosh, that was so clear and powerful. Thank you for that. That was
No
fantastic.
problem.
We all learned a lot. I can guarantee that. And with that, I'm going to turn the podium to Rachel.
Thank you so much, and I will keep it moving. I think Bridget may be teeing up some slides for me. Awesome. Thank you. And I will be going very quickly through them, but also we'll be sharing them on the app. So thank you. I'm Rachel Dawn Davis. I'm the Public Policy and Justice Organizer for Water Spirit, which is a nonprofit ministry of the Sisters of St. Joseph of Peace. Our faith-based nonprofit is proud to be part of the New Jersey team of people working to advocate for the passage of a Green Amendment, and proud to see such great interest from throughout the state tonight. Some really great questions in the chat and some energy that's palpable, so it's exciting. It's time for New Jersey to protect these sacred rights, namely alongside the landmark cumulative impacts law. Next slide, please. Personally, I became an activist, not because I really wanted to, just because it happened, as a student and a policy advocate, as an economics student, and now I'm a parent, and I've been backing the New Jersey Green Amendment since 2017, so it's a little bit about me. Next slide, please. And this is still the strongest legal grounding I can leave all New Jersey's babies, including my own, and this tangible preventative policy solution moves me into action. Next slide, please. Okay, so we can make this a reality. We just need to use all the tools in our toolbox, and I'm so glad Kim Gaddy used that reference earlier. A resolution is a great tool for education, outreach, endorsement, and press coverage. So next slide, please. And again, you'll have these resources thereafter. question, what is a resolution? A resolution, I'll answer it. A resolution is an official expression of the opinion or will of a legislative body. So raise your hand, next slide, please also. Raise your hand if you do not have experience passing a resolution. I know some of you do. Cool. Well, I know some of you do, some of you don't, that's okay. But a resolution can be made by a corporation's board of directors, shareholders on behalf of a corporation, a nonprofit board of directors, or a government entity. You do not need previous experience to get a resolution passed. We will help you with the first one. If it's something that you're interested in, do not be scared. Do not be shying away. Next slide, please. The length of a resolution is not important. It only needs to be as long as what you need to say. So the practice of submitting and voting on resolutions is very typical when it comes to state and local governing bodies. So this does not also, I want to share, need to be limited to a municipality. We have 8 resolutions passed in New Jersey right now. So I am oh, next slide, please. I just want to go over why this is so valuable. It's an opportunity for education and outreach, an opportunity for press coverage, and again, an educational opening. We have a template, as was asked earlier, for all of these things, for all of these opportunities for outreach and engagement, and can help start a draft for your municipality or organization. We're here to help. We don't expect you to start and finish on your own. We work as a coordinated, intergenerational, interdisciplinary team of advocates. Concerned citizens can bring a resolution before a governing body, again, or an organization, at the public comment section, usually, of regular meetings. Usually this is at the beginning of meetings to be courteous to the public who seeks to attend. And each meeting, again, there's a mix of hybrid and in-person, though I do see some going back in person. Each meeting will have an accompanying agenda posted on a municipal website prior to said meeting. So getting a resolution before the eyes and ears of municipal officials, mayors and town councils, and having them support can carry a lot of weight. This exchange of dialogue, perhaps questions and answers about the resolution, its contents. This is civics at work, and it's what we should be doing. Most municipal governments meet bi-monthly, and calendars are found on municipal websites. After the meeting, the key is follow-up. So I want to make sure to say that, and potential for press coverage, because as I always say, if it wasn't reported or recorded, it didn't happen. So I'm just going to rattle off who has passed a resolution in New Jersey. The Burlington County Sierra Club, New Jersey chapter, Essex County Board of Freeholders, Medical Society of New Jersey, Cape May, Aberdeen Township, and the Borough of Bradley Beach. So please, all of you, consider passing a resolution to support the passage of the New Jersey Green Amendment, this important amendment to our state's constitution, giving constitutional recognition to the rights of all New Jerseyans to pure water, clean air, a stable climate, and healthy environments for future generations. And let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dave to give us our next steps.
So who agrees we're throwing a ton of information, really quickly to all of you, whether you're a veteran or a newbie. We're still figuring out the details of exactly how we're going to relay further information, and there's already lots of resources out there. So, you signed up, so we know where you live, at least email address wise. So you will be hearing from us, never fear. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm not keeping up in the chat. So Robin, Suzanne, and some other folks, I've been wanting to kind of do some personal messages back to you guys, and I haven't, but I will, or we'll catch up in some other way. And it's awesome that so many people have been engaged. I want to talk about a couple quick next steps and leave it to Maya for closing. I'm not sure how long. I didn't set up the Zoom, so I don't know when it closes, but I'm happy to stay on longer and keep chatting, but also want to be respectful of folks' time because we said we're going to be done around 8. So we'll close off soon, but I will stay on after we close off if Zoom will allow me, and we'll keep chatting and otherwise figure out ways to keep chatting and building the movement. A couple things. Bridget, I hope you're hearing, and we have a Google form being prepared and it might be shared while I talk or we will be emailing it to you. There's lots of different things you can do. Lots of different ways you can engage. Everybody has different amounts of time at different times of day and different weeks of the year and at different skill sets. If you have a skill and everybody has a skill, the Green Amendment has a way to exploit your skill to the greater good. So step up and let us all be blessed by your skill. Some folks are social media, some folks like gabbing with people, some people like fundraising, some people like hanging out in the halls of Trenton or whatever. We have a place for you and we will plug you in. So fill out the Google form and we will, and I think it's posted now in the chat, but we'll be sending it to you too, but we will, that's the best way for us to help figure out how to plug you in. We have a weekly steering committee meeting that meets currently at 4 o'clock on Thursdays for folks not involved with that. If you want to be more involved in that, you can be, let us know. And we can certainly engage you. The commitment to that is, the more folks show up, the more often, and the more folks do stuff, the better. But if you want to be involved in that, it doesn't, we'd like folks to be involved all the time, but do what you can do. We're going to have a lobby day on February 27th at the State House. That is the next time the vast majority of the legislature will be all there together. The legislative calendar is complicated in New Jersey. It's a part-time legislature. They only meet on Mondays and Thursdays, and some Mondays and some Thursdays, but not every legislator is there, even on the days they meet, depending on what's going on. So there are some days when only 5 legislators are there. Other days, all 120 are there. But the February 27th is the next best time that they'll all be there. And so whether it's 5 of us or 100 of us, it's a great opportunity to grab legislators. You're not going to have a 30-minute meeting with legislators when you're down in Trenton, but you can have quick conversations, make contacts, develop relationships. We have done that in the middle of COVID, and it's been tremendously effective. High school students, senior citizens, and people in all ages in between have participated and been empowered and made relationships and gotten sponsors that otherwise wouldn't have existed and made a difference. So if you're interested in that, sign up. I am in Trenton virtually every day. The legislature is there. So in addition to official lobby days, if you have any interest in wanting to understand the ropes of Trenton, the actual legislative process when it's happening in real time, and or want to be lobbying on the Green Amendment in person, we'll be happy to work with you. I am there and I will point you in the right direction. I think those are the 3 biggest next steps that folks can engage in. We were hoping for more discussion in Q&A, but we are running a little bit late. So unless somebody corrects me, I'm gonna stop there.
Yep.
And see if there is a moment or two for Q&A or discussion, or leave it to Maya to wrap up and leave us with some empowering words. But again, I'll stay on as long as people want to keep talking after we close up, as long as Zoom will allow us to keep talking.
Great. So thanks for that, Dave. So I think we're going to quickly wrap up for those who have to go. Just really, really want to thank you for joining tonight. I know it was a lot of information, but it was a lot of great information. We will post the presentation and some of the materials on the app. That's really going to be a great place to go and grab things. We'll also have some things on the website, but the app's going to be much more dynamic. It's kind of like a more dynamic Google group. So it's going to be an easier way for us to get to you with fast, swift information when we need to, and ways for you to engage. So I'm going to really encourage people to go there. Kathleen, put the email in a post before you go. Kathleen had asked me to share my email so that folks who have ideas or want to engage can be in touch. So mine and Bridget's emails are in the chat. Try to grab that before you go, or you can communicate with us on the app. And with that, just really want to recognize the truth is, if we care about our environment and we want to address all aspects of environmental pollution and degradation and protect our earth for present and future generations, the most powerful way to do that in one fell swoop is getting the New Jersey Green Amendment. And we can do it with your help. So thank you all for joining.